NBA conference finals continue, hoping for a long series. And this will be the first year since 2010 that an NBA finals did not feature LeBron, Steph Curry, or Kevin Durant. The Bucks certainly look like they have taken control of the series, sorry, Renee, from the Hawks after a playoff career high from Khris Middleton. And the Suns are gunning for their first finals appearance since 92-93. First, Renee, we must speak about the Hawks. What is your level of concern right now after Khris Middleton's career game and the Bucks taking a 2-1 lead in the series?
Well, my level of concern about Khris Middleton and the Bucks are not very high. My real level of concern, I'm not too much worried about that. My real level of concern is that the Hawks just released a statement saying that Trae Young's MRI came back with a bone bruise on his right foot. That's my real concern, Jason, because again, I said it in the broadcast last night. No one's figured out how to guard Trae. Everyone's thought they figured out how to guard Trae, and then he drops a 40-piece nugget. So it's like you have a game, and he might not have guarding Trae and Trae missing shots are two different things. So do you know Trae's shot charts and what shots were open? That's the thing. So Coach Nate McMillan talked about it in the fourth quarter. Bogey had 2 wide open threes in the fourth quarter. Trae had 2 wide open threes in the fourth quarter. Whether or not they make or miss doesn't mean people know how to guard them. So Trae talked about it in his presser last night. He said, look, I had a terrible game too. I couldn't make a shot. I'm an athlete that breaks down the game film. We've talked about it when your Knicks were playing. Making or missing shots doesn't mean somebody's guarding someone correctly. That means that they're making or missing shots.
I agree with that. The Hawks certainly in game 2, which was a blowout win for the Bucks, just missed a lot of shots that they would have made. That said, the
defense isn't. Let me give the Bucks credit. Let me give the Bucks credit.
Gets criticized all the time. He never makes adjustments, and they tweaked the defense. They made Trae see bodies in that game. Now I'm not saying that's why the Hawks missed a lot of shots, but they did tweak it.
They did, and this is survival of the healthiest. We know this. And so Trae, what was Trae's tweak when they just started to do all those bodies? Trae made, and this is not even an exaggeration, he made a 36-footer from the logo in the first quarter. Then he went ahead and made a 35-footer to follow it up to make sure you know that he can shoot those on a regular. He made a 28-footer, another 26-footer. They tracked those with the Hawks on the broadcast. So that's why I say that if he would have taken those shots and missed them, the adjustment wouldn't have been that the adjustment worked. He just made or missed the shots. Trae in the first 3 quarters, unbelievable. If anybody was watching the game, 32 points in 31 minutes, then he got hurt and everything changed. So to answer your question at the top, yes, the Bucks, I'm not saying that the Bucks aren't a good team, but I'm usually never worried because I know that we have Trae Young. We know how to make adjustments. We play well together. But right now we have a bogey that's running around that he just is not there. He's shooting all arms. He's not the bogey that we've seen. The April Showers bogey, where the only person that shot better than him was Steph Curry, was the only player shooting better than Bogey in April. We don't have that bogey. And now we have a bone-bruised Trae Young who, in his presser, he said, look, I'm frustrated, it hurts while I play. My first step isn't my same first step anymore. Yeah. People are staying in front of me. That makes me concerned, okay? Now I'm concerned because now the results of the MRI came back that there really is something there. So that I still believe Atlanta, but woo.
Health obviously has been such a theme of these playoffs, and for Bogey to get injured, to get hurt, that's one thing. But then with Trae, now all of a sudden, the ball handling is not the same. Yeah. Trae, you could tell when he came back from stepping on the ref's foot that it was different. He was playing off.
It was night and day difference.
Yeah, and Kevin Huerter, can he pick up the slack? I mean, these are open questions that really change the kind of entire way the Hawks play, but that was such a freak thing. I mean,
what?
Was just, that's one of those plays where it's like, why hasn't Steph Curry stepped on the ref's foot 1,000,000 times. Like, that's just one of those weird
because they all step. It's called a false step, and everybody does it where you step backwards instead of stepping forward. And, you know, to that point, when Trae Young got hurt last time, because he talked about it, he said, I always get hurt by stepping on people's foot because he does floaters and different things of that nature. Bogey became the backup point guard. I don't know if people knew this, but when Trae Young got hurt and missed a couple games, we had Bogey, and then that's when the April showers happened. So Trae Young's hurt, Bogey's hurt. I mean, Lou Will's going to have to play some way bigger minutes now. You know, we're going to have to lean on him. Red Velvet is, I mean, like I said, I've never been concerned until now, and it's not because of an opponent. It's about health. I mean, we've seen that take down the best of the best teams. Look at the Nets.
Let me ask you this. So, the Hawks fans have been counting out Giannis's free throw time, and they've been doing it, you know, much the same way the Nets fans were doing. And of course, the NBA told the Nets team to stop putting the shot clock up on the jumbo.
Oh my gosh.
And it was reported that the Hawks, you know, the coaching staff, front office, were annoyed, certainly, with the NBA that, like, this rule apparently doesn't count. I know it hasn't really played a role in the Bucks taking control of the series. At the same time, it's like, is this a rule or not? Sorry, my camera just died. Here's my annoyance with this. There might come a point in this series where Giannis going over the allotted 10 seconds actually does matter in the course of this series. Is this a rule or is this not a freaking rule? Like, I'm so
It is a real
this.
Live rule. I mean, like, the NBA, when they put out their statement, they acknowledged that they had messed up and missed it one time when it was more than 10 seconds. So it's clearly a rule that's in the rule books that's basically not being enforced. Probably because the referees, during a free throw, they probably take their little break. They get their mind together. They catch their breath. They need to start counting, okay? Because to your point, of course, these games are so close, all of them. It's not like these games are, of course, there's a blowout here or there, but these are games by 1 to 2 point margins. Yeah, we want, especially for a player like that, where we saw what Ben did, you know, in the last series with Ben Simmons. He didn't even shoot a shot in the fourth quarter. So that's just wild. So imagine if now you're starting to get violations if you're Giannis, and now the rule is starting to be called, and now they have to sit you. Giannis said himself, shouts to Khris Middleton, by the way, because I had to yell at him on the broadcast. I say, calm down, Khris. I'll say it again. Calm down, Khris. We liked you, okay? Like, you don't have to do all that. But Giannis basically was like, yeah, I don't mind Khris being the man in the fourth quarter. That's a 2-time MVP saying that, by the way. So that's was huge. Pretty interesting to me.
Did you see when there was a moment late in the game, Middleton was hot on his run, and he called a timeout rather than throw it to Giannis and have Giannis potentially get fouled because that was like the only pass he could make.
Business decision.
I gotta say, I can't remember the last time I saw a team where the best player was not the best player for the entire game. Like, Giannis, obviously, in the open court and as a athletic marvel who pulls down rebounds, goes the length of the floor, gets into his spin move and just attacks the basket. He's incredible. But down the stretch of games, it's obvious. Like, Middleton can get his own shot in the half court. That's who they go to. Have you ever seen anything like this where it's like this two-pronged approach where you have a 2-time MVP, an MVP level player who for 3/4 of the game is essentially the guy, and then in the fourth quarter, when everything grinds down, you turn it over to a completely different player? I don't know that I've ever seen that before.
I don't know. And that, like, to me, that's crazy because this is a 2-time MVP. I just keep saying that because
2-time MVP.
If you're the most valuable player of the entire National Basketball Association and on your own team, and on your own team, you are not the man in the fourth quarter. I just, like, my mind has a really hard time processing it. Like, I keep trying to process it. It's like that meme with numbers flying around. I'm like, I'm trying to make sense of it, because even as he's talking out loud at the press conference and they're saying it, they're acknowledging it. Yeah, Khris Middleton is the man for the fourth quarter. He literally said it. And he said, when Khris Middleton retires, that'll be the saddest day of my career. I just, like, my mind explodes. I just can't even believe it, because it's like, wow, this is the like, when you get MVP, first of all, people need to understand how hard that is to do with the players.
Incredibly hard.
It's hard to make all-star. You know, every year we talk about all-star snubs. This guy was MVP, and, like, when it matters most, we know the fourth quarter, when it matters most, the ball can't be in his hands. How?
He is a 2-time MVP. Forget, like, yes, winning the MVP one time is really, really hard.
Really hard.
Winning multiple MVPs is like, that's a short. Here's the list. Kareem with 6. Bill Russell and Michael Jordan with 5. Wilt and LeBron James with 4. Moses Malone, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson with 3. Bob Pettit of the old St. Louis Hawks, Karl Malone, Tim Duncan, Steve Nash, Steph Curry, and Giannis with 2. That's
an elite group.
That's a handful of players across the breadth of the NBA. And the only person on this list who you would say is not the best player on his own team during stretches of games is Giannis.
So let me ask you something, Jason. When you go through that MVP list and you look at those players, do any of them have a glaring weakness? That's why it's so interesting to me.
Yeah.
I mean, who would you say has, like, such a glaring weakness?
Wilt famously struggled with his free throws, but it was a completely different game then.
I was going to say disregard the old school versus the new school in a sense of. You can't do that, right. But the point I'm trying to make is that it's like, when you're the most valuable player in the entire league, that means that obviously your numbers were there. You're the best team, the best player. But I just find it hard to understand that a 2-time MVP candidate, they don't want the ball. Khris Middleton would rather call a timeout than give a 2-time MVP the ball?
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, Tim Duncan notably struggled for stretches. I think he has a career free throw shooting percentage of just under 70, but that's, again, like, leaps better than Giannis is shooting. I've really never seen anything like it. It's really unique, and is, again, a 2-time, not all-star, not all NBA.
Right.
A 2-time MVP.
Wow. And you said something that triggered my mind about free throws. Paul George has really, to hop to the next one, Paul George has really received a lot of criticism. A lot of talk has been playoff P, and when you self-name yourself, that already gets, that makes it tough. I'm just going to say, like, when you give yourself your own nickname and it's something as fire as playoff P, of course, the internet, the trolls, they don't want you to thrive. But the reality is, Paul George has struggled late in the game at the free throw line. Now, we've seen this a lot. Ben Simmons, Giannis, Paul George. Like, if you're a superstar, is it just a part of the contract? If we're paying you X $1 million, are you supposed to make it? I mean, look, I've missed free throws too. I get it. But when you're on this level, like, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it's interesting because so much of the way we talk about sports is like a relitigation of these, like, established legacies. Players like Giannis or like KD, what KD did in Game 5 against the Bucks. We look at those performances and we judge them through the lens of basically Michael Jordan, right? That's the way it happens. Like, Michael Jordan kind of laid out, for right or wrong, we can think it's unfair or fair or whatever, but Michael Jordan laid out the template of basically what's expected of an NBA superstar, right?
Yep.
You guard the best guy, you take all the big shots, and you have a very short memory when it comes to your own failures, and you come through when it matters, and you want that moment. You invite the pressure. You don't run from the smoke. You run toward the smoke.
Yeah.
And so it is, in that sense, part of what we're saying about Giannis when we're like, wow, look at this, is basically this is not what Michael would never have done this. And that's fairly unfairly, that is the case. We look at these players through the lens of the greatness established by Jordan. We do it with LeBron too. When LeBron early in his career, when he was passing to open guys, we were like, well, why are you doing that? I mean, it was obvious.
Yeah, and he's a pass first player, and we still did that comparison.
So I think that, to me, when we look at Paul George, and when we consider him naming himself Playoff P and all the kind of like the jokes and the memes that came from that, part of that is the fact that we're not used to players who talk that stuff then failing. It's very rare that happens. Like Tim Duncan didn't say anything. Kawhi Leonard, of course, doesn't say anything. Trae Young talks a lot but backs it up, and also has that extra layer of kind of like bulletproofness, where even when he fails, he doesn't care. Like, he doesn't care.
Yep. He says, see you in the A. For instance, when they were cussing him out and yelling at him, he's like, all right, I'll see you in the A.
Yeah, he doesn't care. He could airball 5 straight big threes, and I guarantee you he doesn't care.
Facts.
But there is something, like, on the one hand, like, compelling and vulnerable about, like, Paul George, a guy who you can tell really wants to be great.
Yeah.
And has been open about his own struggles with that pressure and with mental health. That kind of struggle is fascinating under the glare created by this like template of Michael Jordan's greatness. It's just really interesting to view the some of the stars that we have, the young stars and the current stars, not LeBron stars, I should say, that we have in the league right now through that lens.
No, you said something interesting, because Michael Jordan set the bar higher than a lot of superstars are reaching, in a sense of, how often do you see the best player guard the best player? A lot of people were upset in the Bucks Nets series because they were like, why isn't Giannis guarding KD? He's in the press conference saying that KD's one of the best players to ever play the game. And so that doesn't even happen. You might see them match up when it's like crunch time and the minutes matter, but Michael and them really were guarding the other team's best players and then dropping a gazillion points on the other end. So I just wanted to say that is different. But to Paul George's thing, that's interesting, because I think you're right. And you know what? This is where branding and everything. I remember Paul George released some playoff shoes, some PlayStation type of shoes where
PlayStation, those were cool, actually. I like
those were cool. And so there was this whole playoff PlayStation P. It was like, I could see how the brand got all mixed into where it became Playoff P. But to your point, if you talk about it, oh my gosh, with the internet these days, the internet will not let you forget anything. Like nothing. No. That's it. No. And he talked about it, and now this is happening.
He's just a very compelling player to me, because in a sense he can't win. It's like when he bricks 2 crucial free throws 100%, like we're going to see those memes. We're going to see those jokes. Then when he plays well, as he has been playing well, like over the course of the series, even within that game where he missed the free throws, you really don't hear about it. He had 23, 16 and 6 in game 4. And like, we don't talk about it. It's an interesting situation that Paul George is in. He's a really good player who is just, we will not let him forget the things that he has said.
No, and you talked about interesting players. How do we feel about Kawhi Leonard in the box office? Okay, he has his own suite Now, if this was anyone other than Kawhi Leonard, I would say, I think this is pretty unacceptable because even though you're not playing, get your swaggiest outfit, get on the sidelines, talk to your teammates, be there, be vocal, be present. But we all know Kawhi Leonard and his personality type. On the call, Mike Breen was like, now Kawhi goes wild. And it was like,
cut to him.
It was the perfect announcement for him because we know his personality type. So is it okay that Kawhi is not on the bench? Like, is that okay?
I mean, really, I should be asking you. I will say that, here's the thing that I love about the playoffs. Kenny the Jet Smith kind of talked about this, and it was fascinating on a couple of weeks ago on Inside. It's like the Clippers are in the conference finals for the first time ever. There's no one on that roster. There's no coach. There's no one on that in that organization who, if they want to say something, will not have everybody's attention in that moment. Everybody is locked in. You're in the conference finals for the first time. You're a step away from the finals. If anybody on that squad wants to say, hey, I'm seeing this, they will have the undivided attention of everybody on that team. And that's part of what makes the playoffs so exciting. It's that other level that gets unlocked where you really realize, not to say that players are coasting during the regular season, but there's a different level of intensity.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And I think you're right that because of Kawhi's extreme reticence, his quietness, the uncanny quietness and low keyness that he has, that we just kind of like we just let this go, because in that moment, if he was down there on the floor, even though he's in street clothes, if he sees something, if he sees an assignment, if he sees an opportunity, if he sees something that a player could be doing, he could offer that. And 100%, everybody on that sideline will be locked in on what he has to say.
For sure.
And it's interesting that he's not taking that opportunity.
Well, that made me think back to, I don't know if anyone remembers, but when he was playing for the San Antonio Spurs, it became a really big thing that he wasn't showing up to the facility. Pop would be like, I don't know where he's at. It was that kind of like, they didn't know what was going on, and he was kind of doing his own thing. So in the Spurs organization, they didn't like that, but we all still kind of gave him that same pass. Like, well, it is Kawhi. I mean, he's quiet. He's the fun guy, sarcastic title that they gave him, but it's like I don't see any problem with him being up there. And in the same time I say that, if that was any other player, I would be like, no way. You have to be on the bench. You have to be present. Even just having you there gives a calmness to the team. If you can go to the huddle and say something, that's what you do. Even when you're that superstar leader, if you can't be there on the court, you have to be there in spirit with them and talk to them and give them energy. I would say that about every single other player in the world. He is the one player that I'm like, I mean, like, you start to like, I mean, because you even see how he is up there and you're like, would that enhance the bench any? Like, I mean, I don't think so.
You talked about it when Mike Breen in his Mike Breen call way said, Kawhi Leonard going crazy. And then they cut to him. And Kawhi looks like, I don't know, he looks like he's waiting for his car to come out of the car wash. Like, there was no reaction at all. He just looked absolutely dead-eyed, like
it
nothing.
Was crazy, and no one was surprised, right? Like, it was like the perfect call in the perfect moment. So if he was doing that on the bench, I don't know if that would help. Like, I don't. So then knowing that he would be doing that exact same thing on the bench, that's kind of what gives him a pass, because it's like, well, I mean, that's not helpful.
Yeah, don't bring down the energy. Yeah.
I don't think he would be bringing it down. I just don't think he would be lifting it up. I think that they're used to his energy, like that he vibrates low. And I don't think that I think his teammates see a different him, by the way, too. I want to throw that out there. I think we see Kawhi a certain way, but I know his teammates see him different. But also, I do know that if he's sitting in street clothes, I would assume that he would probably be just sitting there just like that. So, yeah, why not? Sit, get your own suite, have the family up there, eat some food. Why not? You're Kawhi. It makes sense.
Okay, let's talk about the Billups, Portland, Dame Lillard situation. So just to catch everybody up, it seemed like Portland had a number of candidates, but it certainly seemed like Billups was the leader in the clubhouse. He has a relationship with GM Neil Oshie, who signed Billups as a point guard with the Clippers back in 2011. And that's often how these things go, right? Yep. The front office sees the coach as kind of, when any kind of upheaval, disappointment happens, you want to be able to, it's the coach who gets fired first, right? Because if it's not the coach, it's going to be the front office. So those two there needs to be a high level of trust there. So this is often how it happens, right? The GM has a relationship with a proposed coaching candidate, and that's the person who gets hired. Now, the thing with Billups that became controversial is apparently, and I did not know this. This is one of those things that happened pre-internet and is a thing that people had forgotten about. When Billups was with the Celtics in 97, he and his teammate Ron Mercer were accused of sexual assault. They ended up settling the case, but the details are pretty troubling. And then when this emerged, along with Billups, being the seemingly the leading candidate for the job and about to get hired, the discourse online then kind of turned against Blazers star Damian Lillard because it was assumed as the star he would have had some kind of say in who gets hired. And Dame then, I should back up here. Chris Haynes of Yahoo Sports then wrote a story.
Shouts to Chris, that's my guy.
And Chris is well-sourced in all things Damian Lillard. So when he writes something about the Blazers and about Dame in particular, it is viewed as being in line with Dame's own concerns. And this piece, basically said that the backlash from the fan base, from social media on Dame about this, has Dame rethinking his relationship with the Blazers. There's a lot to unpack here. First of all, what is your reaction to this story, Renee?
It's interesting because, again, I didn't even know about this until it came out, to your point. And so, that though, any NBA team, they know every single thing about the person they're going to hire, just because when you're hiring people and you're paying millions and millions of dollars, you do your research. Mm-hmm. And so, we know that sports is very forgiving when it comes to domestic violence, domestic abuse. We know that because we've seen it happen not only just in basketball, but in football too. We've seen the brightest of stars have murky waters and then it just kind of go away, and then we just go cheer on them being a star again. So, it's in the same breath. I'm not surprised. In the same breath, it's are there not other candidates, or is that not we don't know all the details of the case, but it's such a tough nuance.
So I'll say this. I think that there's a world in which both the Blazers and Billups thought that this would not be an issue. After all, Billups he's been present on NBA broadcast. He's been working as an analyst. And again, you and I are extremely plugged in on all things basketball, and this was the first we had heard of it. So in a sense, I guess there's a world in which both sides could have thought this is not going to come up, because it hasn't. Obviously, that's not the correct way to think about this. And I think that
I was gonna say, but is that okay?
No, that is not okay.
If we don't get caught,
not okay. Now there's another argument from you'll see people online and different commentators saying, well, should this case has been settled, nothing else has come up. Chauncey is an upstanding citizen in the years certainly since then. Why should his opportunity to be a head coach be cast aside because of something that happened so many years ago? To which I would say, one, if we're using opportunities as a measurement for something, I think I'd say that Chauncey Billups has had in terms of opportunities, has had plenty and is certainly not hurting in terms of like his employment, etc. And that two, really what we're saying is you don't want to look for somebody who doesn't have this kind of thing in their past. Like no one is saying send Chauncey Billups like to jail. We're just saying, is there not someone else? This a similar thing is going on with the Mavericks right now. Of course, the Mavericks have had a bad record in terms of employees with records of domestic abuse and sexual harassment, and now they are hiring as their head coach Jason Kidd, who has a charge of domestic violence against them lodged by his then wife, and then during the divorce she then raised other issues about spousal abuse. Is there really not another person who doesn't have that in their past? And what does it say to people who have suffered this, that the world is just willing to let it go if an executive has a relationship with this person and sees them in a completely different light? Those are all things to consider when looking at head coaching positions, a resource and a job that is extremely, extremely rare and competitive.
You asked the question, and I know it was rhetorical, but I'd love to answer it anyway. Sure. Is there not any others out? Well, I know Becky Hammon. Mm-hmm. She's a name that we know that she's studying under the best of the best. There's nobody in their right mind that will say that Pop is not the best, and he's the head coach of the Spurs. Greg Popovich is going to go down as one of the best coaches to ever coach in the NBA. She is studying under Greg Popovich. She has paid her dues. She has sat on the bench. She has done her job well. She has won Summer League as the head coach of the Spurs in Summer League. She's done it. She's like, the resume is there. I'm just curious, when we're asking rhetorically, are there any other candidates? I just have to raise my hand and say Becky Hammon, because I just don't get it, in a sense of, I know there's still current openings out with Orlando, New Orleans, and Washington, but when you're weighing the pros and the cons, and you know that they do this on the umph level, when you have a lot of money, when you're running a big business, every single decision you make gets dissected on so many levels. So to know all of those things, to your point, we're not saying put the guys in jail or whatever, but I just want Becky Hammon, and there's Teresa Weatherspoon out there, but some people she might not have been coaching long enough. Becky Hammon is one that I know that there's this coaching carousel where if I know you and I play golf with you and you're the homie, I hire you. And I think that that's a bigger problem in a sense too. But it's you would rather have to deal with the media backlash and the fan backlash that's going on right now than maybe take a chance on a Becky Hammon. That's what's kind of crazy to me.
So now to the Dame Lillard of it all. Here is the first graph of Chris Haynes' report on Yahoo. Quote, the enormous backlash from the Portland Blazers' process to hire a new coach and his concerns on whether a championship contender can be built have become factors that may push the franchise player Damian Lillard out the door, league sources told Yahoo Sports. Now, first of all, it must be said, Dame is 30. He is among the best offensive players in the NBA, top 7, top 6, whatever the case may be. So Dame wanting out of Portland is an absolute earthquake.
Yeah.
The question in my mind is, how much of this, backlash from the process to hire a new coach is legit, and how much of it is Dame Lillard was already looking on his way out. Like, he was already looking for a way to move, right? He's 30 again. The championship window is closing. His peak, you would assume that age he'd be on the downside of his peak. How much of that is kind of like opportunistic? Like, oh, here's an off ramp I see coming. Maybe I'll use this and take this, because, one thing we know about Dame Lillard is he has really established a brand along with Bradley Beal, of the guy who's like, I want to do it here. I want to do it here. I don't want to be like the rest of these players who go chasing rings. I want to make it work in Portland, the team that drafted me.
Listen, I think that he really, had the pieces fallen in place. I 100% think that Dame Lillard would have started in Portland and retired there. But players start to get fed up along the way of just little things that happen. And it could be something minor one year. It could be the next year we knew we need a shooter and we didn't get one. You know, any little things that could happen. And then all those little things turn into a big thing. And now all of a sudden he's tweeting out people that he wants to be the coach. And let me read this tweet he said real quick, because we talked about Billups. And he said, "Really? I was asked what coaches I like of the names I heard, and I named them. Sorry I wasn't aware of their history. I didn't read the news when I was 7 or 8 years old. I don't support those things. But if this is the route y'all want to come at me, say less." This is terrible for the Portland Trailblazers. I'm sorry, but
it's not good.
This is the fact that he has to tweet and defend himself on a coach that has just signed a 5-year deal. I'm telling you right now, all those little things, all the many million little things, they add up. And then Chris Haynes comes in there with a statement and different things, and you can't be surprised. You know, players just want to win. We know Dame Lillard is Dame time. And what we mean by that is we know that he steps up in the biggest moments. He wants to be that guy. He wants to be on the stage, but his teams can never get him there. And that's a huge problem. So I think it's convenient. I think that right now what's happening, it's looking like an exit ramp.
I mean, here is, just think about it this way, right? Who is the second best player? Who's the best player that Dame Lillard has played with in his time as a Blazer? CJ McCollum. CJ McCollum's a nice player, but the kind of running mate, all-star level, like second option that like Steph has enjoyed? No, certainly not. That KD has enjoyed? Certainly not. That Kyrie has enjoyed? Certainly not. That LeBron has enjoyed? Certainly not. And that is for 9 years now with the Blazers under the run of Neil Oshie. Some of this is on Neil, and I understand the fans. I understand lashing out regarding the choice to hire Chauncey Billups as the head coach, and I understand lashing out at anybody who you thought might have had something to do with it,
right?
Because it's a tough decision to defend. That said, this is on the front office. Whatever Dame actually can't draft up the contracts and send them over. You know, like he may have given a thumbs up or thumbs down, or I don't know, or this guy's fine, or I don't know about him. At the end of the day, the person who sends the contract over is still the front office, is still Neil Oshie.
And that's why I said, to that point, you know, millions of dollars, this goes through these organizations. Yeah. So somebody has to do their due diligence. And if that did happen, they need to be telling Dame, I really believe that if you're going to hire somebody, where in this day and age, look at where we are, you know, that matters. There's civil unrest when it comes to all categories. It's not just race, it's equality, it's rights. Like there's a civil rights movement going on, whether it's LGBTQ, whether it's about protecting women, whether it's about women's rights. So knowing the climate of 2021 coming off of 2020, I think that's a huge oversight to not at least mention it to your players, so that now he's not defending himself on the internet. He said, look, I didn't read the news when I was 7 or 8, but your team maybe could have told, like, I don't know how you tell someone that, but I don't feel like it's on Dame.
Well, I 100% agree with you. And this honestly feels like, you know, I was on a group chat about this and someone was like, is it that they didn't know, or is it they know and they just kind of don't care? And unfortunately, I do think it's the second thing. You know, Neil is friends with Chauncey Billups. I think you can't really look at sports and point to too many episodes in which incidents like these have meaningfully hurt the ceiling of an individual. And so I think that it is, I think that it's unfortunately not a stretch to think that, not that they didn't care, but they didn't think that it would be a meaningful factor on any level in the way that the franchise was perceived, in the discussions around it, in the way that, in their ability to attract free agents, make trades, deal with other teams. I just think that they didn't think it would be a hindrance at all. And I think that they would probably look at, you know, the the way people have reacted to Chauncey up to this time and thought, okay, well, this thing is buried. Nobody has talked about it. Chauncey's on TV. Nobody's talking about it. And therefore it doesn't move the needle for us. And I think that is probably what they thought, fairly or unfairly. I think it's a sad statement, but I think that's probably what they thought. And Dame, unfortunately, is now caught up in this.
Yeah, they probably thought it was out of sight, out of mind, in a sense of it happened so long ago. Like you said, he's been a great guy since then. And so they probably thought, okay, we're clear here. You know, we're in the time frame. We're good. And I guess this should be a lesson, I think, to everyone that, you know, if it's out there, it's going to keep coming back. Like, I don't care how long ago it happened with the internet these days. We said it when it came to Paul George. They don't let anything die on the internet. It will keep resurfacing forever almost. You know what time it is. This is the stories that we didn't get in the show, our buzzer beaters. I'm going to start this thing out because I'm excited about my buzzer beater. We launched, and when I say we, the Renee Montgomery Foundation, okay, give me some love, Jason. Okay, so we launched Renee's Runs, and what that is, a lot of times when women go to play pickup, that could be at the Y, at anywhere, guys don't like to pick up women for whatever reason. They're stuck in the past. They think that women can't ball. So sometimes women are stuck waiting every fourth game to play. We're not having that anymore. We're changing that. So Renee's Runs is going to be pickup games every Monday and Thursday here in the A, where we turn up for the ladies. Like, the ladies are going to be there. They're going to ball out. And when I say ladies, I mean hoopers. We're going to have somebody on the mic, MCing. We're going to have vibes and music. So we don't need your runs anymore. Okay, we got Renee's Runs, and I'm hype about it. Jason, what you got?
I got the movies. I've now returned to movie theaters. I am vaccinated. Movie theaters here in LA are allowing people in at lower capacity. It's basically an honor system as long as people are being vaccinated. But I've really enjoyed it. I saw In the Heights, and then I recently saw F9, the latest Fast and the Furious, in the theaters, and it's just great to be like back in a movie theater. It felt really nice to just be sitting there amongst other people, smelling the popcorn, paying $15 for a drink, watching the trailers, which is like you get to see the trailers that are the best part. The theaters. Those are the best ones. I really enjoyed it. It was great to be back.
It's crazy hearing you say that because, as everyone knows, Atlanta, we've kind of been open for so long that hearing you say that, I'm like, wow, that's crazy.
I've been like next level careful. I have asthma, so I've always been like, and I'm one of these people that it's like, I think I just read too many like Armageddon, like Hunger Games books and watched too many movies. So as soon as, what in
The Walking Dead is going on,
so
Jason?
I was like, forget it. I went on like full bunker lockdown when this shit happened. Like I'm laughing, but we did the exact same. 35 pounds of spaghetti.
Yeah, no, I'm laughing, like, and my family did the same. Like, we were like bunkered up. I bought a mini fridge to store more meat. I was like, we have to have meat. So I got all kinds of frozen. I actually got a mini freezer, had all kinds of frozen meat. I did the same. So I'm glad. Welcome back to society. We have to get back in there.
Goodbye. That is it for us. Follow and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe to Takeline Show on YouTube for exclusive video clips from this episode, plus my digital series, All Caps NBA, which airs every Friday. Check it out, folks. See you next week.
Let's go!